Hakuin song of Zazen. Page 8. Hakuin song of Zazen.
From the beginning, all beings are Buddhas. Light, water, no ice. Without water, no ice. Outside us, no Buddhas. How near the truth, yet how far we seek. Like one in water, crying, I thirst.
Like the son of a rich household, wandering poor on this earth,
We endlessly circle the six worlds. The cause of our sorrow is ego delusion. From dark path to dark path we wandered in darkness.
how can we be free from the wheel of samsara?
The gateway to freedom is Zazen Samadhi.
Beyond exaltation,
Beyond all our praises, the pure Mahayana.
observing the precepts, repentance and giving,
The countless good deeds and the way of right living all come from Zazen.
thus one true samadhi extinguishes evils. It purifies karma, dissolving obstructions. Where then are the dark paths
to lead us astray?
The
Pure lotus land is not far away. Hearing this truth, heart humble and grateful,
to praise and embrace it, to practice its wisdom, brings unending blessings,
brings mountains of merit.
and if we turn inward
and through our true nature, our true self is no self,
our
our
own
real self is no self. We go beyond ego and past clever words.
then the gate to the oneness of cause and effect is thrown open.
Not two and not three, straight ahead runs away.
Our form now being no form, in going and returning we never leave home. Our thought now being no thought, our dancing and songs are the voice of the Dharma.
How bright is the heaven of boundless samadhi.
How bright and transparent the moonlight of wisdom.
What is there
outside us?
What is there we lack? Nirvana is openly shown to our eyes. This earth where we stand is the pure lotus land, and this very body, the body of Buddha. Yesterday, as I was walking back to Josh's apartment, I noticed all the cars parked around, and I noticed some light and some sounds coming from the next building, which is St. Bernard's Catholic Church, the neighbor of this Methodist church. And so I was drawn there, and I walked over, and lo and behold, the Mass was still going on. They had just begun, and I was able to catch most of it. So I sat down. It was a packed church. It can hold about 900.
Yeah, legally.
Legally. And yet it was really teeming with people, and there were people who were outside, and there were people who were standing, and there were people holding their babies and so on. So I sneaked in, and I found a small opening between two ladies, and I asked, "Can I sit there?" And so, okay, so I did. So I had my nice seat near the altar. And so I was able to celebrate the Holy Eucharist together with the 1,000 or so people who were gathered there. And it was in Spanish, so that was a good way of practicing. I think the priest must have been South American. He had
Argentine.
Argentine, yeah. He had a way of speaking that was not the usual one that I would hear from Mexico or from other Central American countries. In any case, that reminded me that I have forgotten to mention. I had intended all along to mention in our evening session that today, which was yesterday, December 12th, is the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. That's why there was a mass there, and everybody, the church was full, because they were celebrating this very special apparition of the Holy in the form of the Mother of Jesus, who appeared to an indigenous person in Mexico, Juan, what was his last name? Juan Diego. And so that was about, 3-4 centuries ago. 5 centuries ago, thank you. And thank you. What was the exact date?
1531.
1531.
December 9th.
Also, the 500th year will be celebrated in about 6 years. That will be a big one. So this is an apparition of the Mary, the mother of Jesus, who on earth was a Palestinian Jewish woman who gave birth to this person who became an itinerant preacher and so on, and who was recognized as someone who was exuding the holy, the divine in his whole person. Anyway, that's a whole story that I won't go into. And so this feast yesterday is a way of the holy manifesting itself in ways that are different from Western Christianity. So that's why it is valued so much in this part of the world, in the Americas, which is really the land called Turtle Island by the peoples of indigenous origin. There are throughout the world there are about 5,000 different nations. And how many are there in North America? Would you know, Liz?
574.
500, thank you. 500. Liz comes from the Cherokee Nation, you said, and so I'd like to really talk to you later and learn more about that and how I can meet some more people there. I'm in New Mexico now, and it's one of the things that has been inspiring me ever since I moved there and since I retired from my day job. I'm asking, now what shall I do with my one wild and precious life? And I'm drawn to that part of our heritage, common heritage, namely the indigenous peoples. I go back to the Philippines, and that's what I also am drawn to visit Mindanao, where there are maybe about a dozen at least groups of indigenous communities there. And I really am inspired by their way of life, and yet also I am pained by the way they had been treated by the settlers who came, the Spanish settlers, and then the mainland Tagalog settlers, which is my people, part of the oppressors. Anyway, just to give you an update on where I am in my own personal journey. But yesterday, somehow I realized, I should have reminded everyone earlier that today, December 12th, is that feast day, and I met Patri there. I saw her going to communion, so I saw, Patri is there, so I greeted her after the Mass. And so you mentioned that Kuan Yin is the Mary of...
So yesterday, another way you could have said what the feast was about was the canon of the Americas.
That Mary who appeared in Guadalupe is also can be also regarded as the canon of the Americas. From a Buddhist standpoint, Kuan Yin also appeared in that form in Mexico, and now she is revered in that way in this Christian community. So in that regard, Mary, Kuan Yin, Maria, canon. So if we are ever to regard our own history and see when we started, I don't know exactly when the legal papers for our incorporation was dated. I know it's 1992.
91.
91? And do you remember the month and date?
April 19, your wedding anniversary.
Oh, really? April 9. Thank you. I didn't know that. So, well, that's the legal paper. But if we are to decide, well, there are several members of the board of directors here, and with Helen here as the resident teacher, if you can consider that one day of the year will be our celebration of our origins. This could be one. It doesn't have to be according to the legal status, but when these two important symbols of encounter with the holy in feminine form meet, Our Lady of Guadalupe, and then the Canon of the Americas, Maria Canon. So December 12 could also be something that we could celebrate in that regard from here on. Just a suggestion to Helen and to the board to consider, and that could be something. So we will be concluding our session today, and then we'll have lunch together. So during that lunch, maybe that can be a celebratory lunch for our own origins, not necessarily the historical date, but at least as a celebration of the joining of those two traditions, the spiritual traditions, from the Christian, Western Christian, indigenous, and then Christian, and then Buddhist figure of compassion that bears the suffering of all humanity. Anyway, just a thought that I wanted to share. Helen, do you have any?
Yeah, but on December 8th, we celebrate the enlightenment of the Buddha, and at the same time, we also celebrate the Immaculate Conception. So that's been a yearly celebration.
Yes, that's right. Enlightenment Day as well as the Immaculate Conception. And then now Guadalupe. So it's within the same circle. In Santa Fe, the church where I go to with Maria, those two usually are celebrated together in a circle of celebration, and there are different festivities, choral renderings, and so on, and indigenous groups who are there to do their rituals and so on. So in any case, it was a festive occasion for me to celebrate the fact that we are here together as a Sangha. And so I'd like to just convey my gratitude for the fact that we are here as a Sangha, continuing to practice together, sitting around doing nothing, and yet in that sitting around doing nothing, somehow receive fruits that empower and nourish our day-to-day lives together as a community. So that's the first point I wanted to share, namely that there's so much that we can be grateful for, and that these two traditions, from Christianity on the one hand and Buddhism on the other hand, have somehow merged in a way that can be seen as mutually complementary and mutually fertilizing one another, that may enable us to bridge the gap between religions in a way that will enable religions to really see how they have so much in common that we need to really cooperate together and work together and learn from one another. Now, looking back over yesterday, I said in the beginning that I was going to focus my comments on the first line and then the last line of Hakuin's Song of Zazen. From the beginning, all beings are Buddha. Then, this very body, the body of Buddha. So I somehow made some comments on the first one. From the beginning, all beings are Buddha. So what is Buddha? And then I made comparisons between the word Buddha and the way it is used, given what I had recounted, that the Buddha came to be identified with what the Buddha realized, namely, well, it's called the Dharma, but it's the Dharma of emptiness, the Dharma of the intimate interconnectedness of everything in the universe. What did the Buddha realize in his moment of realization that he kept throughout his lifetime, that he sought to share with so many people in the words that he used responding to their questions? As we look at the way it was developed and articulated throughout history for the first several centuries, we saw how the Buddha, who started out as a human being, who acknowledged that he was simply a human being, but somehow who awakened. What did he awaken to became part of considering what the Buddha means. And so what he awakened to was the reality of the intimate interconnectedness of everything, so that in realizing who I am, I realize that I am each and every part of you. I am each and every one of you. I cannot be myself if you were not there as yourself. And that goes for each and every one of us. And later on, Chinese practitioners who also were seeking to articulate that came up with the image of Indra's web, which comes from the Hindu tradition also. The web, a net, an infinite net, where each net surrounds a jewel of different sizes and different shapes and different contours and so on and colors. And lo and behold, if you look at one individual jewel, each jewel contains all of the other jewels in that infinite net. Unimaginable. Beyond anything we can ever conceive of in our logical mind. But somehow that is the intuitive experiential realization that the Buddha realized based on how it was articulated several centuries later. That each and every one of us is a jewel in that infinite net with our different shapes and contours and with our different gifts as well as gaps, with our quirks and with our talents and so on. That individual jewel that you are, that I am, that we all are, each in our own way, is part of everyone else and everything else. And that's what we are invited to discover when we sit here in silence. Not to try to grasp it with our intellect, but to allow it to come forth. And Hakuin is telling us what that is, what we are. From the beginning, all beings are Buddha, and you are too. Realize that. Buddha, meaning that infinite web that contains everything. And so, realizing that, we realize we belong. We are part of the whole that makes us feel, I'm one with you, I'm kin. Just like my son Benjamin realizing he was a cousin too. And the joy of that realization, right from the start. He just discovered it. Yay! So please know that. Discover that. You are a cousin also. You're part of that interconnected whole, and so celebrate your whole being together with everyone else. And with that, I know I took the term Brahman from the Hindu tradition and noted that it has some similar strains in inviting us to realize that that which we're talking about is beyond anything we can ever imagine. And then to repeat what I tried to say yesterday, so Brahman comes from the verb br, which means to increase, to grow bigger. That which keeps growing bigger than anything we can ever imagine. So if we imagine Brahman is like this, then it's no longer Brahman because it's naturally bigger than that. I'm tempted to note the little quiz about the bigger family. I've said that a couple of times here, so some of you may have heard it. There is the bigger family. There's the Papa bigger, there's Mama bigger, and Baby bigger. So which one of them is the biggest? Anybody? It's baby. It's the baby. You know why? Because he's a little bigger. Sorry. That was a sidetracking. Couldn't help that. But it's bigger than anything we can imagine. Just a little bigger. When we think that's God or that's Brahman or that's Buddha, blow that away because it's bigger than that. And so you are bigger than you think. That's the message. And so in that regard, that thing that is, it's not a thing, but that which is bigger than anything we can ever imagine is also more intimate to us than we are to ourselves. Our Atman, our deepest true self, that spiritual core where we encounter the holy in our lives, our deepest self in Hindu tradition, the Atman, which is correlated, which is identified with our Atman, with our Atem, with our breath. So when we sit here breathing in and breathing out, we are simply allowing our hearts to be one with that dynamic reality that we always experience, otherwise we wouldn't be alive, that breath And in really following the breath, not just following it, it's in front of us and we're following from behind, but in allowing the breath to lead us, we entrust ourselves to the breath. And in doing so, it leads us to that vestibule and then into that inner room where we realize Brahman, Atman, no difference. That's an invitation from the Hindu tradition. Now, when I was studying this, as I recall in graduate school, I was amazed. That sounds very much like what Augustine said when he also described in his own Confessions that God is greater than anything we can ever imagine. Brahman, bigger than we can think of, and yet more intimate to us than we are to ourselves. So the word God in Christian tradition, in many cases, is identified with a white bearded old man in the sky who looks down and then punishes the wicked and rewards the good ones. But forget about it. That's really an idol that so many people have created. We can never imagine what the reality of God is. And so in yet, it's the reality that enables us to breathe, move, and have our being. It's that which makes everything what it is. And so, in that regard, these three words, Buddha, Brahman, God, are like those fingers I noted yesterday from different directions pointing at the same moon. Look how resplendent. And if you compare those fingers, they don't make sense. The finger that points from the Hindu tradition is bent in a way that is suited to those who are in that area and they lead to the moon, but someone from the Christian tradition sees, hey, it's different. The angle of your finger seems to be different from the angle of the finger here. And so they fight again about who's right. And that's the unfortunate thing about us human beings, that we fight about these small things that make us forget that it's really pointing us to something beyond anything we can imagine. So it's an invitation to always go beyond whatever we can think of and just let that inner sanctum be opened so that we can enter into it and realize that which is beyond words, beyond concepts, and enable it to embrace us, to shed light on our lives. And when we meet others who are also carrying that light, we know we are kin. Whatever way they describe what they understand to be that reality that makes them who they are. So with that, it's simply to live that in our day-to-day lives that Zen is all about. And so let me then just go to the last line of Hakuin that I neglected to do yesterday. So what is Buddha? After reading and after chanting all of those lines about our being astray because we're looking elsewhere, like barking at the wrong tree and so on, so go back. What else is there lacking? Nirvana is openly shown to our eyes, the previous line says. And this earth where we stand is the pure lotus land. And this very body, the body of Buddha. Whenever I recite that, what resonates with me is the Catholic celebration of the Eucharist. At the heart of the Eucharist is the event known as the consecration, where the priest takes the bread and the wine prepared previously and offers it up. And in offering it up, recalls an event 2,000 years ago that happened when Jesus was about to be arrested and put to death within 3 days, wherein Jesus called the disciples and took, during their meal, took the bread and gave it to his disciples one by one. Here's a piece for you, a piece of Christ. Anyway, and he said, take this and eat. this is my body given for you. And the apostles didn't know what the heck this was all about, but they just ate and chewed and so on, and then they consumed it. And then after the meal, then he takes a cup, and then he says, this cup is a cup of my blood, the blood of the new covenant, which will be shed for you and for all, so that sins may be forgiven. Drink of this to remember me. And that is what's commemorated in the Catholic Mass, in the Eucharistic celebration. So after that event of the consecration, where the bread and the wine that had been offered from the elements of earth becoming bread, and then from the grapes becoming wine, now taken up and proclaimed as, this is my body given for you, this is my blood shared for you, for your salvation, for your wholeness and well-being. Then after that, some more prayers, the people line up and receive it, the body of Christ. And so as we line up there, we offer our hand, and some people still from the old tradition would just open their mouths and stick out their tongue, and then the priest would just put it there. That reminds me of another story, but I won't yield to the temptation, about Ash Wednesday. Somebody was lining up for Ash Wednesday and stuck out their tongue. Wrong. Sorry. Wrong. In any case, so when we receive that, we take it, we chew it, we swallow it, and we come back to our pew and just let that melt, let that become one with our body. So at that very moment, if we're really paying attention, the words come again, resonating. This is my body given for you. So the question comes, whose body? Where does that come from? And where is it heading? Given for what? I'd like to offer that to everyone as your koan. You may be Catholic or not, but just imagine yourself receiving that bread, taking it, chewing it, becoming your body, and now that bread, that wine that was offered at the altar, offered up. By the way, as the priest is offering it up like that, everyone who is attending the Eucharist is invited to join that offering by putting themselves also on that offering plate, so that each member of that community who's attending is also lifted up there. So here I am, take my life and use it in whatever way you want. Let me become an instrument of your love, or thy will be done in whatever I do. Not mine, not for my ambition, not for my power, not for my possessions, but let it be according to your will, the way Jesus lived, the way Jesus offered his life. So that's the invitation for all of those in that community. And in doing so, then it comes back to us in the form of that little piece that we are given, and we eat it. And now what? Who is this that's walking here or sitting here and just ruminating on what has just happened? This very body, the body of Buddha. This is my body given for you. So it's an invitation now to realize that this very body is precisely one among the multitudes of other bodies who have been offered and are now one in that movement of living no longer for oneself, but living on behalf of others, so that we may be of help, of some little help in the healing of our severely wounded world. In whatever way, in our little corner of the world, whatever way we may be of help in that, we just do it simply without any airs about it. And that's our way of offering that body towards the healing of all. So the question for each one of us is, within my circle of friends, within my circle of acquaintances, and within my circle of encounters, in what way can I live so that it's not the I, me, mine that governs my life, but that my life is a gift to each and every one, so that every one of us might be liberated from all the burdens we carry and from the sufferings that we bear, so that I may be of some help in some way in relieving others of their burden or of their suffering. So that's the question that each one of us is invited to ask. And it doesn't have to be any grand thing. We don't have to be someone famous, like whatever, give a famous person who was known for having done some marvelous things. Just be someone who can be that within your own circle. And this reminds me of the situation when some people ask, but the world is so huge and there are so many problems, what can I do? There's Gaza, West Bank, Ukraine, Sudan, so much domestic violence, so much discrimination, so much hatred going on, and so much that tends to make us depressed regarding the future of our world. Our younger generation don't seem to be looking forward to their next phase of life because it's all going down. So what do we do? And what I'm reminded of, and which gives me some kind of hope, is the story of the father and the little girl. You've heard me say this maybe sometime before. The family was on vacation near a beach, and while the rest of the family, the mother and the other kids, were somewhere doing something, the father took the 5-year-old girl on a walk to a part of the beach, where as they enter the beach head, the sun was shining. They saw thousands of starfish lined up on the sand. They had been carried by the waves to the sand, and then the waves receded too fast and were not able to carry the starfish back. So the starfish were there languishing in the sand, and if that continued for several more hours, then they would all dry up and die. So when the little girl saw that, she took one starfish and hurled it back to the sea, and then another one. And then, ooh, look at this, I can do this. And then the father said, honey, it's useless. See, there's so many, you can't make any difference. But the daughter said, I can make a difference in this one, and in this one, and in this one, and in this one, see? And so somehow that little girl gives me some hope. We can be like that little girl. In the overwhelming suffering and oppression and trouble and dis-ease that our world is facing, there can be more little girls like that, and we can be like that little girl. And if more of us got together, perhaps there may be a difference in turning the tide of our communal destiny, and somehow, who knows? The only thing we can say is within our range. So this very body, the body of Buddha, is not so much something that makes us, okay, now I'm Buddha, but precisely an invitation to realize that this body is connected to everybody, literally everybody, including sentient and non-sentient beings, and I'm part of everything, and so that I feel kinship with everything. And precisely because of that sense of kinship, the only thing I can do is to offer what I have and what I am in celebrating that kinship and in alleviating the wounds and the difficulties and the obstacles that prevent my fellow kin from realizing that they also are kin. They also are cousins. So, what else can I say? What do we do now? Just sit and breathe and be still and listen to that voice, and we will hear what each one of us is called to do. This very body, the body of Buddha. Let us recite Boundless compassion. Thank you.
Boundless compassion.